Alright fellas, now a little while ago the road to Haney Garcia 2 was revealed, with a card including Garcia, Haney and Teofimo Lopez. I've sat back since the press conferences and just watched all the chat about the upcoming event. Most of the talk has either been about Garcia vs Rolly or Teo vs Barboza. No one's really talking about Haney's fight, and I think that might be one of the toughest of the bunch. No matter what people are saying, Jose Ramirez definitely ain't no tune-up, and this bout will tell what the future of Haney's career will actually look like. Now to go back for a second, we all know what happened in that last bout. A lot of you'll love a bit of revisionist history, but surprisingly going into the last fight, most people thought Haney was gonna easily win. Yet of course he got bashed across 12 rounds, and a few positive tests and it ended up being called a no contest. Yet since all of this, the fans didn't really like how Haney conducted himself post-fight, with him suing and mouthing off. And that's where we find ourselves today. The path to the rematch is now set, and for the hype that this rivalry has generated since the last bout, it's fascinating to see the lack of response to these upcoming bouts being announced. Yet in a few months we will see Haney fight Ramirez, funnily enough, on a Garcia main event undercard, which will hopefully set up the rematch for later in the year. And all of these fights are set to take place in Times Square. Since that last bout, the main question surrounding Haney has been, well, what now? That performance did horrific PR damage to the Haneys, as well as bring his boxing ability into question. There was some criticism of Haney's style after the Loma fight, but nowhere near as big as after the Garcia fight. They went from being known as, well, he's well skilled but really not tested against the elite, but he is kinda likeable, to he won't win another fight, they're the worst blokes in boxing. In the LA press conference that happened the other day, there were just straight boos for Haney, and Bill certainly wasn't too happy with that. And he wasn't too happy with how the presenters seemed to just be overlooking the whole PED scandal. And that's fair enough, if I was Bill, I wouldn't be too happy either. But let's be honest, the presenters aren't going to sit there and call out Garcia for being a PED cheat, because then they're not going to sell the fight. Then they're not going to have a job. It's simply business. It's not morally right, but hey, it's what's going to happen and keep happening. But some of the criticism directed towards the Haneys is well deserved. It's one of those weird cases where the boxing world just isn't forgetting. Usually the internet and boxing forgets things pretty quickly. Think of all the drama that's happened with Ryan Garcia over the last 18 months. To most of the fan base, they just don't care, but the hate for Haney is ever present. And I've certainly engaged in criticism in the past. I found it hypocritical that they complained about weight, and I didn't really like that they were ducking mandatories because they thought they were some pay-per-view stars when they absolutely were not. But what I am pleased to see is Haney have some resemblance of balls to try chase the Ryan rematch. What confuses me though is his want to desperately move up to 147. Haney struggled with the move up to 140, hell he struggled at 135. Aloma, who was tiny in comparison, gave Haney a whooping and debatably beat him. And the only way he really has won belts is by cherry picking at the right time to get the belts when they were in the hands of less than elite opponents. At 140, once fighting someone his size, Haney was shown to have no power, struggle to keep the distance, and seemingly have no chin. So just off common sense, a move up to 147 doesn't really make sense. He could really be struggling with the weight cut, but still on paper it doesn't seem like the best move. The rumour is anyway that this Ramirez bout will be a 144 pound catch weight, with this being the first time both have fought at this heavier weight. Now Ramirez isn't what I'd call an easy fight by far. I look over at Ryan vs Rolly, and to me that's very one-sided. Entertaining yes, but incredibly one-sided. Ramirez though is a former Olympian, former 140 pound unified champ, and the two losses on his record come against a prime Josh Taylor and a close fought loss against Barboza Jr. He's no slouch, and I worry that the Haney camp is still somewhat rattled by the Ryan bout and it might be even overlooking him. Ramirez is a true 140 pounder, Haney's size, pressure fighter, and also has a decent left hook. This fight is 50-50. Ramirez has been shown to be able to knock out opponents and has the reach to tap Haney's chin. I think a lot of the casual fanbase will be just saying, oh well, Haney can outbox him. But I worry Haney won't be able to keep his distance across 12 rounds and get dragged into a brawl in which, against Ryan, that was his worst nightmare. Haney excels against opponents simply he has a clear advantage against. He likes being taller, being able to work off the jab easily, and not get brought into brawls. He loves to initiate clinches. That's what he's all about. The second he has to say brawl, he's in a lot of trouble. And although I commend him for taking the fight, I have no idea why they didn't just want to make the Ryan rematch straight away. This event gives me flashbacks to the Day of Reckoning card, which was meant to set up AJ versus Wilder, but it all went not to plan. Unless they both win in dramatic fashion, I can't see the pros to having these bouts in the first place. It's risking what is one of the biggest fights in boxing at the moment for no real good reason. This is one thing I just don't get about the Saudis. Why do they do these warm-up events which never seem to go to plan? Although, this whole event is still entertaining, but there's just no reason for it. I don't know if they want to delay the rematch to have it instead open Riyadh season, or join the undercard for Bud versus Canelo. I don't know. But the risk of them killing off the rematch is real. If either fighter loses, the rematch loses a ton of steam, or just might not even happen. And it's not like one of them even has to defend a belt. There was no reason this couldn't have been next. I look over at the Ryan matchup with Rolly, and although yes, it's very entertaining on paper, they both can really talk, Rolly is really tailor-made for Ryan to knock out. Styles make fights, and although Rolly's unorthodox style could potentially catch Ryan, I just see Rolly walking onto something at some stage. Probably a hook finds a home, as Rolly's guard just seems to be non-existent, and God, Rolly really loves to keep his chin in the air. The real risk, simply put, is the Haney bout. The Haney camp still seems rattled with Bill Haney losing his mind, as I said before in the last press conference. This is the energy they're bringing to a bout they might be overlooking. This could be a world of trouble. Another loss would potentially be career ending, as genuinely, where does he go from here? And that's why I reckon they've pushed for Teo to be on the undercard also, and by that I mean the Saudis. Although he does have a tough fight ahead of him, if Haney embarrasses himself on the big stage, the next best option to make is Garcia versus Teo. That just makes sense. Yet at the end of the day, Haney's performance in this fight will be a true reflection of what we can expect from him moving forwards. Will he put up a dominant display which will have all the haters back on the bandwagon, or will he prove the critics right and put up a performance that will halt the rematch from even taking place? I guess only time will tell. Now, I want to hear what you think about all the upcoming bouts and especially the Haney Ramirez fight. Also, let me know what you just generally think of Devin Haney down below. But hey, thanks for watching fellas. If you did enjoy, make sure to subscribe and like, it does a ton for the channel, and I'll catch you in the next one.